What is going on, y'all? Gamers again here today with your 2-round NFL mock draft video. I actually did record this video earlier today, but my computer completely went kaput on me, and the whole thing crashed. So we're doing it a second go around. But anyways, if you haven't already, make sure you go check out the Chicago Bears video. That is up and going. That was uploaded on Monday. As of the time you are seeing this, this is Tuesday, the 2-round mock draft Tuesday. Wednesday, we are going to discuss potential sleepers in this draft class. Guys that you might be able to get later on if you do miss out on some of those talents that you might have liked in the first couple rounds. And then on Thursday, we're doing our final mock draft. It's only going to be the first round, so this is the only time you're getting 2 rounds worth of a mock draft for the whole group. I don't think there'll be any more Bears videos, but let's just start off here in terms of the full NFL mock draft. At number 1, it's pretty easy for me. All the rumors, all the smoke is pointing towards Cam Ward being the guy. He is the closest thing to a consensus QB prospect that we have in this class. I know some people aren't sold necessarily on this QB class, but Cam Ward is the best of that group. You look at a Tennessee team that at one point we thought maybe Abdul Carter would be in play, maybe even Travis Hunter. It's kind of just separated themselves here with Cam Ward. Cam Ward kind of preparing for it already, mentioning that both of their receivers, Ridley and Burks, are top 5 receivers in the NFL, or at least in his top 5. I don't necessarily know about that. Maybe Ridley. Maybe, if you really want to stretch, going for Ridley. He's mentioned that one of his top 5 favorite coaches in the NFL is the Titans coach. Either way, signs are pointing towards Cam Ward. I think there's enough smoke there to be a fire. We are going Cam Ward. We might do some trades. I'm not sure. Actually, I want to do this one without trades. In our final mock draft, we will do trades. How about that? The Browns. A lot of smoke being thrown the Travis Hunter way. Abdul Carter, opposite of Myles Garrett, does sound really enticing. You might even look here for Shedeur Sanders to be the guy, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. All signs right now are pointing towards Travis Hunter. You got a team like the Browns that are just not very good on either side of the ball. Travis Hunter gives you the best of both worlds, gives you a chance there to be a receiver 1 if Jerry Jeudy's not that guy for you. I also really like I really like Cedric Tillman there for the Browns, but unfortunately for them, their offense hasn't been particularly great. They need explosion, or an explosive player in their offense. Travis Hunter brings that. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball, a team that's going to struggle to have a solid defense. You go out, you get potentially BB1 in the class and Travis Hunter. There's a good case there for him to be the best receiver and the best corner, and he does both. So the best of both worlds, Travis Hunter, he's your guy here at number 2. Number three for the Giants. The way this board has fallen for me, I think it's got to be Abdul Carter, right? You have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. It's going to be a nasty pass rush there in New York. I know there might be some buzz there for a quarterback. I don't see it happening. They have Russell Wilson. They have Jameis Winston. They have short-term options that gives them kind of an out there if they want to wait till maybe the second or third round to develop somebody behind them. You don't spend a top 3 pick on a developmental QB. Most teams don't. I'm sure there's some case in the past that somebody has, but most teams don't. The Patriots, I'm hearing a lot of different things for the Patriots. I do know offensive line's in play. Some have suggested maybe Mason Graham, Abdul Carter if he's there. I'm going to stick with the offensive lineman. I think Armand Membu will go above Will Campbell. He does seem very Patriots, like a very Patriots kind of pick. Will Campbell, obviously the measurements came back a little short for what you'd expect out of a tackle in the NFL. Armand Membu, though, he checks all the boxes. Absolute freak of a season last year. Look at him, 6'3", only 21. This guy right here is the closest thing to this class of being like a guy that has just unlimited potential. Like when you're talking about tackles that could turn into being a franchise tackle, Armand Membu is the closest thing. Whereas Will Campbell, who I think is really good, and I think he will be a Pro Bowl type of player, I don't know if his ceiling is being the best tackle in the league. Where Membu, I think there is a ceiling and there is a situation in which he does become one of the best tackles in the league. Campbell, I think, will probably be top 5. Membu, I think, with the athleticism, with kind of some of the traits he has the ability to be the best tackle in the league. Will he be? I don't know. That's up for the Patriots to figure out. They're going Armand Membu there over Will Campbell, though. They are scared a little bit of some of the traits and some of the measurements there to deal with Will Campbell. Don't take that wrong. Will Campbell's going to be a star in the NFL. I just don't know if the potential with Will Campbell is as high as it is with Membu. So that's why I have them going Membu here. The Jaguars, for the longest period of time, if you're going to go here, Mason Graham, 62% the Jaguars. But then I'm hearing Mason Graham's not so set in stone here at number 5. They said, don't be surprised at offensive lineman. Well, guess what? Will Campbell just went. The more polished of the linemen at this moment in time, the more NFL ready at the moment. And Will Campbell, he's sitting there. Ashton Jeanty, potentially one of maybe 2 or 3 blue chip prospects really in this class left on the board. Maybe you see this being Tyler Warren, which I really like. This is a Tyler Warren spot. Tyler Warren, you get in there, you're giving Trevor Lawrence an option. But I think realistically, priority number 1 should be keeping Trevor Lawrence happy. And I'm going to go show you what they're doing right now. Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis. Receiver's not in play here. Let's be honest. It's not in play here. This offensive line doesn't wow me by any means. Walker Little, he hasn't been great. I mean, he's not horrible, but he hasn't been great. None of these guys really stick out as like, hey, you went and got your guy. So, yes, Mason Graham is a shoo-in for most people here, but with Will Campbell here still being here at 5, I'm taking Will Campbell to help protect Trevor Lawrence, and that is goal number 1 if you are the Jaguars. The Raiders are on the clock. This should be Ashton Jeanty, right? This should be Ashton Jeanty, or, I mean, look at this running back room. So shout out to Sincere McCormick. I do have him in a fantasy league that is a keeper league. This running back room, not particularly one that's too impressive, right? But this right here, and an early 37 for your next pick, I would love a Moron Hampton if you got there at 37. Scadaboo, I would take at 37. 5 Henderson, Judkins, Caleb Johnson. There's a lot of talent there that will probably not necessarily all be there at 37, but 1 or 2 or 3 maybe of that next tier running back will be there. So for me, I don't know if you... Because here's the way I look at it. You look at the defensive tackles. Walter Nolan will not be there at 37. I don't care what anybody's take is about whether or not he has the motor and the character or maturity of a top pick. Walter Nolan will not be there at 37. Derek Harmon will not be there at 37. Tyreek Williams, yes. Omar Norman Law, Darius Alexander. Those are all guys. CJ West even. All guys that you would expect to be there. Kenneth Grant maybe will also be there. But for me, Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. Those are the 3 here that if you have a tier of defensive tackle, those guys you're not getting. But the Kenneth Grant drop-off, the the Darius Alexander drop-off, the CJ West drop-off, is one that I rather not take a gamble on when I can go get Scatterboo, when I can go get Caleb Johnson, Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, even a Damian Martinez in the 3rd round. Really good runners. I don't think running back will be the priority this early. So with that being said, here's our first kind of shock of the day. While their number 1 option is on the board, they're taking Mason Graham because they know that the defensive tackle depth is not that of that running back depth. So Will Campbell, the draft really starts probably here around 2 or 3. It should be Hunter Carter from the sounds of it. Those two could flip-flop. The draft really gets going at 4, though. If this is Campbell, if this is Mimbu, maybe even Genty here sneakily being the guy at 4, it's the draft really starts at 4 in my opinion. The Jets here. The Jets are just a bad team. They're a bad team. Their offensive line needs improved. Mimbu's gone. Campbell's gone. So are you talking yourself into probably, if you are talking yourself into somebody, it's probably Kelvin Banks. I really like Grady Zabel. Josh Cotterly, going to be young. He has the tape of locking up Abdul Carter. He's potentially an option. I doubt Simmons with the injury, coming off the injury, is going to be top 10, but maybe. For me, though, you've got to pick up a lineman. But I've also heard the idea floated around that Tyler Warren would be the guy. The tight end room isn't good. Tyler Warren will obviously kind of at times act as the 6th offensive lineman. For me, I think Tyler Warren has got to be the answer here. I think he's got to be the answer. Then we get to the Panthers. With the Panthers, I know a lot of Jalen Walker smokes around them. I do. Give me a second, too. I had to make sure my door was closed. Jalen Walker here is probably the guy. I like Jahdae Barron here also. This is good. Yeah, Jalen Walker really highly picked here. It's probably Jalen Walker. I'm not going to overthink it. He's on the board. It's probably Jalen Walker. The Saints are on the clock. The Saints are tricky. They have Alvin Kamara. Do they need Ashton Genty? No. But you look at their QBs, man. Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener. Do they commit to one of those guys? Derek Carr, I don't know what his status is for next season, so you might be running a lot of Spencer Rattler as it is. The question then becomes, how much trust do you have in Spencer Rattler? I don't know that answer. This could be a shitter spot. I'm going to opt not to do it here. I don't think the Saints are a team that is going to make something out of this number 9 for their QB spot when the value's just not there. Receiver, Teteroa McMillan, definitely somebody that, as you see here, a guy definitely, when you have Olave injured and when you have Rashid Shaheed injured, a guy that would come in and significantly impact a team, even if they are healthy. He's definitely a guy that would go in there and be receiver 2 at worst. You'd imagine he'd be Rashid Shaheed out, and then you have Shaheed maybe in a slot. But Teteroa McMillan, very interesting player there. I really like Mike Green as the player. There's a lot of character questions there with him and accusations surrounding him. If that checks out and if you have answered all the questions there, I think you start to see this being his range. The Saints, I've heard some Jahdae Barron smoke here with the Saints potentially. I think with the board being the way it is, this is probably where Walter Nolan goes, right? the Saints are one of the trickier teams to draft for, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of ways they could go. Walter Nolan, but just committing to it. Walter Nolan, he's going to be the guy there at 9. And I kind of selfishly did that because I want Ashton Jeanty here at 10 for the Bears. Everybody knows the Ashton Jeanty story, playing at Boise State, one of the best players in the entire country. Probably should have been a Heisman in any other year that there's no two-way player like Travis Hunter. Ashton Jeanty's your Heisman. Really good player there out of Boise State. Physical runner, a guy that in the past has shown the ability to catch out of the backfield. You kind of ease him into a backfield now in Chicago that has Roschon Johnson, has DeAndre Swift. It was kind of my interpretation going into the draft, into the offseason, that they were looking for another running back because of Swift, but it sounds like maybe it's more so because of maybe not having the confidence in Roschon. Even then, though, if you keep Roschon around for RB3, not too bad. I figured there's more so a move on from Swift's situation at first, but it sounds like Swift and Jeanty, or Swift and whomever, might be kind of a fire and ice situation like Montgomery and Gibbs if it does get to the point where Bears do draft a running back. The 49ers being up on the clock. I know Membu was, heavily picked here. Walter Nolan heavily picked. Their guy's really not here. This could be a trade down spot here with the guys already off the board. I am, however, going to go have them take their next best guy here to fit the need of corner, Jahdae Barron, who I think is cornerback 1 in this class. Then you get to the Cowboys. The Cowboys, they probably could go Amarion Hampton here. It's just Tetairoa McMillan sitting there, Matthew Golden sitting there. And the way I look at it is, Tetairoa McMillan, obviously receiver 1 kind of player. Obviously, really good college career. Matthew Golden, not as polished of a college career, but we saw the breakaway speed. We saw him being real explosive in the combine. He's made a lot of money for himself just through the combine itself. You have a team with CeeDee Lamb already. That Tetairoa McMillan, he's going to go there, be a target hog, right? You'd imagine he'd be going to a team where they want to feed Tetairoa McMillan. They have that guy in CeeDee Lamb. So now you're talking about what can we get for our team that might give us an edge over some of those other teams competing for the playoffs and being kind of in the perennial mid-category. You go get speed. You go get speed here with Matthew Golden. That is my answer to a lot of questions in the NFL draft. For the Bears, I won't spoil exactly what I'm going to do in the second round. There's some speedsters at the receivers position that I think will go second, third round that are barely in the PFF top 100. So definitely stick around for the rest of this video, but I'm not going to spoil it just yet. The Dolphins, they need offensive line. Will Johnson would be great if they had offensive line. Kelvin Banks ain't on the board. Jahdae Barron, Membu, Simmons starts. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. This has to be offensive line. Simmons, Simmons is probably going to be my offensive lineman that I have slide a little bit. He is coming off the injury. Got hurt against Oregon, by the way, the first time around. But he's coming off injury. Kelvin Banks sounds like he might be going a little earlier than originally thought. At one point, we thought he would go high. Then it sounded like maybe he'd be the one to slide down a little bit, maybe into the 20s. Sounds like maybe he's evening out there somewhere around the 10 to 15, maybe even 17 range. It doesn't sound like he'll get too far down the first round. So Kelvin Banks, I like here. I really like Gray Zabel to the Dolphins also. Gray Zabel is probably he's one of my draft crushes in terms of just a guy that I really like picking for these middle of the first round teams. The Dolphins, I could easily see them going Gray Zabel, but I think more likely than not with Kelvin Banks on the board, it's going to be Kelvin Banks in that situation. The Colts here, no Jahdae Barron, by the way. The Colts are an interesting one because I could see them going corner. The tight end, do you go Loveland? It's the next tight end on the board, and there's a really big need there. For me, you don't. And that's because I'm not as sold on Loveland as other people. Then you answer the question about the Colts. Does Mike Green clear your questions of him? I don't know that. Donovan Ezaraku, an absolute freak of nature. You're going to look into him a little bit. 90 last season in terms of PFF grade, coming off 14 sacks, 6'2", 240. This guy is going to be a problem in the NFL, but he probably doesn't fit the typical Colts build, right? Because you look at him, absolute beast, really great grades. You look him over here, really good, like physical combination of what he is. But the Colts, they like these very not tradesy guys, but guys that just things you can't teach, like the 6'6" guys, the 275-pound guys, like just freaks of nature. And Ezaraku in his own right is a really good athlete, but I don't know if he fits that kind of physical combo that they're looking at. But guess what? There's a guy in Shamar Stewart who does. 6'6", 290. Not the most polished of players right now. We're going to go look at his college stats. Not very many sacks. But you look at a team in the Colts, kind of the way they draft is just based off of upside and based off of on their defensive line. They just go for the best athlete. Shamar Stewart to me is that. Then we get to the Falcons. The Falcons are an interesting team to pick at. Mike Green, very popular here. Jahad Campbell, who I'd really like here for them as well. McMillan, you're sliding, buddy. You're sliding. For me, though, I do think it has to be Jahad Campbell. I can't see him falling out of the top 20. I don't know if there's another team that would make more sense than the Falcons. We thought they'd probably address defense last year. They went Michael Penix. Now is their time. Jahad Campbell's on the board. Go and get him. The Cardinals are absolutely upset right now. Jahdae Barron was not is not available because he was selected. So they are upset because he would have been my number one guy for them. But good news for them. I think there's a second guy for them, and that's Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Maybe if Walter Nolan would have been here, it would have been him. But I think there's some serious problems in the trenches there in Arizona. So they're going Derek Harmon out of Oregon. The Bengals, they should be very happy. Simmons probably on the table here, but I do like Gray Zabel to go above Simmons. That's one of my bold takes going into the draft. We're going Gray Zabel. The Seahawks, they have to go offensive line, it feels like. Their offensive line is really bad, and you will end up getting Sam Darnold hurt. Simmons, he is coming off the injury. He's a really good football player when healthy. Or maybe you're talking about a Connerly. I think we got to go Simmons here. But don't be shocked at Connerly. Connerly was just down the street in Oregon, and I believe Connerly's actually from Washington. So don't be too shocked if they go Connerly there at 18, 19. This is a place I really loved for James Pierce, but with the guys being on the board as what it is, Donovan Ezaraku's there. It sounds like he'll probably go above James Pierce at this rate. Mykel Williams still being there. I really like Mykel Williams, by the way. PFF not as high on him, but Mykel Williams just feels like an edge rusher that I don't know how he would fall outside of the first round. And then you're betting on Georgia. I would bet out of Georgia 9 times out of 10 when it comes to producing defensive linemen. I'm taking Mykel Williams here. The Broncos, this has kind of been a place for Omarion Hampton. Analysis is going to show you, Omarion Hampton, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Walter Nolan. Yes, Omarion Hampton's on the board, but so's Tetairoa McMillan. And last year, Courtland Sutton was, at times, the only guy really doing anything for this team. I mean, yes, Marvin Mims had a role. Troy Franklin, you'd like to think, could develop into something. Tetairoa McMillan, though, he gives you a legit option. This is a class with a lot of running back talent. You're going to get a chance at 51 to come back and do your work around somebody else, whether that's going and getting a Scadaboo, or maybe that's going and getting Judkins, or going out and get Henderson, or whoever, Caleb Johnson. I don't think you have to do it here. I don't think you have to do it here with Omarion Hampton. We're going Tetairoa McMillan, just too good of a player to let continue to fall. The Steelers, this is another Shedeur Sanders-esque place. It's going to be hard to let Shedeur fall out of the first round. This is a team right now. You have Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson as the two rostered quarterbacks. It's got to be a QB. Shedeur Sanders is your guy. The Chargers, no T-Mac here, by the way, but Luther Burden's still hanging around and Emeka Egbuka still hanging around. But there's I don't know why, but I feel like Harbaugh, he's just going to draft guys he's familiar with. Really good player in Loveland, but he's a guy that has a rapport already with the coach. It's got to be Colston Loveland. The Packers, I'm very happy that receiver Tetairoa McMillan's off the board. I know my Packers, I don't have many, but I do have a couple Packers friends. I know they've been talking about, hey, you gotta draft a first-round receiver. I mean, you look at this receiver room, it's not bad, but it's not a bunch. Nobody really stands out as a receiver one. Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs. There's no real receiver one. A lot of solid receivers, not a receiver one. More so guys that you're trying to stretch into being that. Luther Burden's sitting there. That's scary. And Emeka Egbuka is sitting there. That's scary. But if you're the Packers, you get at 54. And the Packers, I just know the way they draft, right? They don't really prioritize receiver too much because they're going to be looking in that second round. Be like, Alec will be there. Jaden will be there. Jack will be there. Trey Harris, Xavier Restrepo will be there. Jalen Noel will be there. Isaac Tesla will be there. Jalen Royals will be there. Kyle Williams, who I'm not as high on, will be there. Savion Williams will be there. Isaiah Bond, spoiler alert, he's going to go in my first 2 rounds. Tez Johnson will be there. Torrey Horton, who I really, really like, is going to be there. You can get those guys later on. Will Johnson, you can't get him later on. He is a guy that at one point was considered to be the best corner in this class. Had a down year. He's had some questions with his health and whether or not he'd be the most ideal size coming into the NFL. Yes, he's 6'2", but he is 200 pounds-ish. So he at times could be out-physicaled here potentially. But for me, the player's a good player. I'm betting on good players. We're having back-to-back Michigan picks here. Will Johnson's my guy if I'm the Packers. The Vikings, I don't know how you guys managed to do it. Omarion Hampton, I would run. If I was them, I would run to the podium to take Omarion Hampton. I'm talking myself into Omarion Hampton at 10 if Gentry's off the board, by the way. But Omarion Hampton, I would run to the board for if I am the Vikings. The Texans, I just don't see how this isn't an offensive lineman. It's got to be. They obviously traded Laramie Tunsil. Simmons, popular pick here, not around. Josh Connerly, though, is, and Josh Connerly is one of my guys here. Really think that, I mean, yes, he's like 21, but he's somebody that, if you have in a system with good coaching, I think could develop into being a really top-tier tackle in this league. He's somebody that is already put on tape locking down Abdul Carter in that Big Ten championship game. I'm betting on Josh Connerly here with the Texans. The Rams are now on the clock, and I would have took Colston Loveland here. I would have done it. Maybe Mason Taylor. I'm hearing some Mason Taylor smoke. Maybe towards the early second round. Maybe he even creeps into the first round. I'm not going to do that, though. I'm not going to do that. Connerly would have been an option. Ursery, Donovan Jackson, maybe. Maybe Tyler Booker. Probably not. I'm going to stick away from Booker for now. Corner, not feeling it, but you might know where I'm going with this. We're going Jackson Dart. You don't get too many opportunities when you're the Rams and you have Matthew Stafford and you're probably going to be a playoff team to go get a quarterback. You don't have very many opportunities, right? Look at the Packers, what they did. With Aaron Rodgers on roster, they went out and got Jordan Love. Not because they needed a quarterback this year, because they were thinking 2 years down the line. You're going to have a guy sit behind the quarterback that currently is in Matthew Stafford. Jackson Dart is going to learn from a guy that is for the most part, been pretty good throughout his career. He's a Super Bowl champion with the Rams. You're going to have Dart learn and be that guy. You're probably not going to have a chance to pick inside the top 5 again. You won't get a blue chip quarterback, but you could do the next best thing and get a quarterback that could develop. At this point, if you're drafting QB in the late first round, early second round, you're getting a guy that has the traits to be the guy, just might not be the big buzz of the draft when you're talking about future or former top 5 picks, the Jaden Daniels, the Caleb Williams, the even Jared Goff to some extent, right? Like you're just not going to have Shedeur Sanders sitting here at 26. You could do the next best thing and go get Jackson Dart, who we'll probably hear his name called a little bit earlier than his PFF ranking. This is another one. And sorry, Malachi Starks. I really am sorry to Malachi Starks. I always have safety slide, and that's a personal problem. I do understand that for some reason I just always overlook the safeties because I kind of feel like everybody does. Nobody's a really big safety needing team at the moment, in my opinion. There are teams that need safeties, but there's higher needs on the board than safety. Malachi Starks, really good player, should not be here. I want to make that clear. Malachi Starks, this is no slight towards him. But there is a guy here that the talent alone should not have him here, but the questions have not been answered. I think the best case scenario for the person, Mike Green, is to go to a team that does not need him, if that makes sense. The Baltimore Ravens do not need Mike Green, but he is the best player, not the best person, the best player available at the moment, in my opinion. The player is a top 15 player, maybe top 10. The character, the allegations surrounding him, teams ahead are probably not going to feel comfortable enough to draft Mike Green when there is, let's be honest, some significant allegations around him. But it takes one team to clear him in those allegations, and he's a top 15 player in this draft. However, let's say teams haven't heard what they wanted to hear. And that's kind of the scenario I'm kind of toying with here, is you didn't get the answers that you wanted out of Mike Green. You're probably looking at a team late in the first round, like a Ravens, that they don't need him if the answers aren't fully answered. But if, let's say, the answers come out and it's all good and you're good to go with Mike Green, the Ravens are getting a star player. They're getting a great player. This is why I think a team towards the end of the first round is the most likely destination for Mike Green. I know the average draft pick's at 15.6. I don't think that's possible. I think you're more so looking at the late first round. You're looking at a team that doesn't need Mike Green, which is going to draft Mike Green, because you're going to get to a Ravens team, if you get the best out of Mike Green and there's no problems with him and there's no character issues or anything, if you get the best out of Mike Green, that takes the Ravens from being the 27th pick to potentially picking the 32nd pick. He is that good that he could boost their defense enough to win a Super Bowl. That is the highest potential outcome there for Mike Green. But if he doesn't work out, you're still the Ravens. You'll still be a really solid team. So this is probably the range you'd expect Mike Green to go. I know some people take him in the 15 to 20 range, and I've seen a lot of people take him a number of different places. I don't think he'll lead the first round, but he's just a guy that you're going to have to keep an eye on in this draft. I don't expect teams that are in the rebuilding process to go with, but teams that don't necessarily need to bank on one pick individually to flip the fortunes of their franchise, I think he'd be the guy to look out for there. The Lions are up. Receiver is not a need. It is not a need. PFF has it all wrong. Why would you need receiver? I get the receiver 3 is not great, but you have Amon-Ra, you have Jameson Williams. You're not taking receiver round 1. Maybe in the later few rounds. Maybe. Linebacker, nobody I love here. Schlesinger out of UCLA. He is somebody to watch out for in terms of maybe going a little bit earlier than people expect. Edge still being on the board. James Pierce, a guy I really, really like. Ezra Raku's still there. Really good football player. And to be honest, the Lions, they just won't care. They won't care if maybe you're only 6'2". I think they just want a good football player, and I definitely know Ezra Raku's that. The Commanders are now on the clock, a team that obviously took Jaden Daniels last year. Now they have yet another opportunity. This has kind of always been a place for a corner for me. Benjamin Morrison I really like here. Trey Amos even. Maybe even Siobhan Revell. But you're not picking again until 61. We saw at times Jaden Daniels running for his life. I'm taking Tyler Booker. The Bills are now on the clock. To me, James Pierce is not a guy that should fall out of the first round. At one time, considered a top 3, top 5 player in this class. Didn't have a great... he had a solid year, but he didn't really do anything spectacular. 8 sacks. It was a good season, but nothing that really wowed us. And then after that, there was kind of some maturity questions that came out about him. You put him in a room with the Bills, a winning team, he's not going to have any problems. James Pierce wins and goes to 30th overall to the Bills. The Chiefs, I kind of, a few different times have had them taking Derek Harmon here, but obviously in this scenario, he's not there. Could you maybe see a Kenneth Grant go? Maybe. Donovan Jackson, you're probably not looking at anybody else there. Do they maybe dip into the receiver pool? To me, though, you probably just go... I want to go defensive tackle and take Kenneth Grant. I don't want to see him fall out of the first round. The Eagles, they're kind of upset because they were almost getting away with Mike Green, and they are a team that I guarantee you will not care about in the off the fields because they've drafted multiple players and just let everything off the field sort itself. And if it all checks out, guess what? The Eagles always get a star player out of it. But the Eagles here kind of gifted a golden opportunity. Luther Burden being on the board, probably not expected to be on the board here. Only 6% of people are taking Luther Burden. Nick Scorton, a big-time pick here for most people. Luther Burden, though. I like Luther Burden in terms of going there to the Eagles. I know receiver's not their number one need, but the player sitting there, you've seen the Eagles do it too many times. Just draft the best player, and things will sort itself out. The Browns back on the clock. We obviously went Travis Hunter. Now we got to get somebody to potentially throw the ball to Travis Hunter. Guess what? I've heard a lot of smoke about, where is he? Tyler Shuck. Maybe even Jalen Milroe. But to me, it's probably going to be Tyler Shuck. I'm hearing he potentially could be a first-round guy sneakily. And that kind of came out of nowhere to me. I've been seeing it on Instagram the last few days. Maybe I'm all wrong, but I'm hearing a little bit of Tyler Shuck buzz. I'm not really hearing it for anybody else here. We're going to go Tyler Shuck. They need a quarterback. They're going to go get themselves one. The Giants, another team, need quarterback, but I don't know if it's here. Are you the guys to go out and get Jalen Milroe right now? Maybe. But once again, you have Russell Wilson, you have Jameis Winston for now. But you don't have a great offensive line. So what can we do here in the offensive line? Ursery, I think he's going to go way above his projection here in the PFF model. Donovan Jackson, another guy I really, really like. He can play a little bit of everywhere. To me, it's between those two. Ursery, they kind of went the Ursery route before, of high potential guy, didn't work out. I'm going to go Donovan Jackson. I think the floor of Donovan Jackson might be slightly better. the Titans, they went Cam Ward. Don't lie to yourselves. Don't lie to yourselves. I know Cam Ward's saying 2 of his receivers are in the top 5 in the NFL, or at least of his favorite receivers in the NFL. Go get him a real receiver 1. Emeka Egbuka. Ridley can be a real receiver 1. Don't get me wrong. He's a guy that might have a couple more years left in the league. Go get him somebody that he can pair with for the next 5 to 10 years. And Emeka Egbuka. Do not try to sit there and convince me Treylon Burks is a receiver 1 in the NFL. Just don't do it. Then we get to the Jaguars. The Jaguars, what did we have them do? We had them go Will Campbell. Defensive tackle was a big-time pick up there for them that we thought maybe Mason Graham. They didn't do it. So they're going to go defensive tackle in the second round. Tyleik Williams sitting around, best run defender in the class probably. Let's go Tyleik Williams, even though Darius Alexander is somebody I also really like. The Raiders now being on the clock. They went Mason Graham. We knew they wanted a running back, potentially in Genty. They didn't get their chance. Guess what? There's options. And potentially my favorite option here in the class, the fast one, the guy that just always seemed to burn teams when I watched his tape. Every time I'd watch an Ohio State game, TreVeyon Henderson would break out a big run. Go get the guy that has breakaway speed in TreVeyon Henderson. Patriots now up yet again. Armand Mimbu is a Patriot. This is another team running back you got to watch out for. I'm not in love with the receivers, but after Emeka Egbuka, do they maybe go for a Higgins? Maybe they go for a Beck. I'm not too inclined to go receiver here. For me, though, you probably look at the running backs. Ramondre Stevenson, he's all right, but not the greatest year. Antonio Gibson, you like to think they'd probably want to move on. And I really like Caleb Johnson. I just don't think the Bears would necessarily have a need for him. But Caleb Johnson, let's go into him a little bit here. Coming off a really solid year last year. But 6 foot, 225, runs very physical. He's just a guy that, I'm telling you right now, you get him in the right situation, he's gonna be a guy that he's gonna cause some problems. Lacks polish, reliability on third down, bad misses, poor technique. Pass protection. You got a veteran sitting there. You got veterans sitting there. But very strong player. I think the speed concerns from the combine aren't really there when you watch the tape. Caleb Johnson, I think he'll clear any questions. Caleb Johnson also kind of a little bit reminds me of Ramondre, and maybe a more not polished Ramondre Stevenson, but more of a slightly different Ramondre Stevenson with a little bit more upside there. The Bears now on the clock. Malachi Starks was an option, but with Genty being on the board, just wasn't doing it. Malachi Starks being here, it's clear for me that the Bears right now are having the best draft, and I might be a little biased by having Malachi Starks fall, but I just don't really value safeties that highly, so that explains that. We get to the Saints. The Saints now on the clock. We had them select Walter Nolan. They got Rattler sitting around. Do they want to go Milroe? That's the real big question. Do they want to go Milroe? Their receivers, I've already mentioned I don't love their receivers. Olave when healthy, great. But after that, Rashid Shaheed, he's solid. He makes some big plays, but they're not a healthy group. I really like Jaden Higgins, though, out of Iowa State. You look at him, he is what would look to be a starting caliber, like, number one receiver, 6'4", 215. He's a guy that just, well built for an X receiver. He's just a guy that, to me, seems like he has all the right combination to end up succeeding in the NFL. I really like Jaden Higgins there. The Bears, back on the clock. They took Malachi Starks, Ashton Genty, defensive tackle, obviously in play. Don't know, maybe C.J. West potentially going a little bit earlier than the PFF model. But Nick Scorton being on the board, man. Nick Scorton being on the board. I kind of just have to do it, right? You're looking at Scorton here. Not huge sack numbers, but there's a reason why he's up here, right? He's going to create pressure. He's got the 6'4 size, 285. Kind of feels like a guy that if you were able to get Dennis Allen to work with, I think opposite of Montez Sweat, Nick Scorton's going to really work out. And guess what? He's an A&M boy as well. So, there we go. Nick Scorton going to Chicago. The Jets went Tyler Warren. They wanted an offensive tackle. They didn't get their chance. They're taking Ursary here. Obviously, Membu is kind of the premier guy when you're looking at developmental tackles and guys that are going to turn out to have like a high outcome. I think the floor is much safer with Membu than Ursary, but Ursary very much fits the mold of a developmental tackle here in this class. The 49ers now up. They selected Jahdae Barron. Jalen Walker would have been a very interesting pick there for them. Linebackers don't love anybody there. Edges probably don't love anybody here for them. I've talked about it a lot. I would feel comfortable taking Jack Sawyer in the second round. PFF doesn't love it the same way as I do. Tackles, Ursary would have been an option maybe. I don't love the value there if I'm them. For me, how many corners do we got on roster? Because Benjamin Morrison's looking at me. And he's looking at me with a really convincing face saying, hey, I need to be selected. I'm too good of a player. 49ers fans, I'm sorry. I'm doing it. Benjamin Morrison, too good of a player. You might have more pressing needs. I get it. You got Jahdae Barron, really good player. You got Benjamin Morrison, who, if healthy, would have been gone in round 1. I get it. You have more needs. But there's two really good players that could be the future of your secondary. The Cowboys, they went Matthew Golden. That I know running back was on the tip of everybody's tongue there. Everybody thought they'd be going running back. Well, guess what? We're with the Cowboys. Omarion Hampton will not be here at 44, by the way. Yeah. We're still going running back here. We're going running back here. It's got to be Quinshon Judkins there for me. Judkins, really solid player. You got to see it last year with Trevion Henderson. Even in a split backfield, really solid player. The Colts, guess what, Colts Nation? You got your tight end. Mason Taylor's there. You have no more worries. He is home. So the Colts, they went Mason Taylor. They went Shamar Stewart. They filling up some needs there. Then we get to the Falcons, who went Jahad Campbell. Edge was in consideration there for them, in my opinion. So you're probably maybe looking at an edge here. Landon Jackson sitting around there. Princely Ayumanimilean sitting there. JT Tuamoloau is there. Once again, I really like Jack Sawyer. Landon Jackson sitting there. Landon Jackson. I'm not as high on Landon Jackson, but I will give the guy credit. You look at it, 7 sacks, pretty consistent last 2 years. He can play a little bit of everywhere. He's going to get you numbers. I just am not. I don't know if there's tremendous upside there, but you're in the second round. You're looking for a pass rusher. You've already in the past went the ways of Arnold Ebiketie. You've went for this high upside pick prior, and it hasn't really hit home runs with. Leonard Floyd's there, by the way. Really like Leonard Floyd. Braylon Trice, somebody that I was really upset they went last year because I wanted in Chicago. Yeah, I think Landon Jackson's going to be the pick here. The Cardinals on the clock. They went Derek Harmon. They passed on a corner. Guess what? They got a gift from above. Siobhan Ravel, I really think he has some potential to go first round. Guess what? He's there at 47 for the Cardinals. He's not going to fall out of the top 50. Trey Amos, I'm sorry, but I do like Ravel a little bit more. And guess what? Dolphins, you probably don't have an offensive lineman here for him. Maybe because we went Banks, right? He might be able to kick into guard a little bit. Maybe you're talking Tate Ratledge, maybe Ozzy. Other than that, I don't maybe see those guys going in the second round. But guess what? You wanted a corner. I'm going to give you a corner. Trey Amos, there he is. The Bengals, I like Gray Zabel. I like the fit there. You need to protect Burrow. That's my number one thing with the Bengals. Is there another option here, though? Edge rusher being a chance. You got to find a Sam Hubbard replacement. I think Princely. I think Princely would be a really good pick for them. I'm going to go Princely. The Seahawks now up. They kind of pick close to each other, not back to back, but there is only one pick between them. The Seahawks, we obviously went Josh Simmons. This is a name that I really attached to them after his combine, and a guy that I just, for some reason, I just see going to Seattle. Legion of Boom type of player. Now, obviously, they're not the Legion of Boom anymore, but Nick Emmanwori, to me, feels like a Seahawk. If you can get him in the second round, I think the Seahawks would do it. We went with Tetairoa McMillan, so now we have to go running back to give Bo Nix a little bit more help. You have the Audric Estimes. You have Jaleel McLaughlin, right? Those guys, they have their roles. Dylan Sampson, maybe? Dylan Sampson, he's had a really good year last year. He's really young. I think Dylan Sampson's our guy here. Scattaboo, I like Scattaboo. I just don't know if he's the right guy here for them. So we're going Dylan Sampson to the Broncos. The Seahawks back up. They obviously went Emmanwori and Simmons. Guess what, though? JSN, their only receiver. Tyler Lockett, I'm not even sure if he's back. Jake Bobo, I mean, he's okay. They need a receiver. Alec Ayamanor is there. That is my selection for them. Go find a DK Metcalf replacement, please. The Buccaneers, Mykal Williams, like that pick for them. They're going to visit the corners. Maxwell Hairston being around. I don't hate it for him. He's not the most polished of players, in my opinion. Only one interception last year. Probably would have been better off if he could have declared last year. But just not a guy that I think is going to necessarily be an elite corner, but I think a really solid player nonetheless. Cornerback, last time around with Bill Johnson. They got to go receiver. Jack Beck being there is tempting. I really like Trey Harris. I really like Xavier Restrepo. I think maybe the league will as well. Trey Harris, somebody I don't... From what I have seen out of Trey Harris, I just don't know how this right here, the last 2 years of, 2,000 yards between the last 2 years, is 23, good size. I don't see him being a guy that falls completely out of the top 2 rounds. I don't know why PFF has him as a 66 overall, but I really like Trey Harris. I would take him here. The Chargers, obviously, we went with Colston Loveland. Receiver, obviously, with Burden being available, was an option. You'd like to think maybe you'd get some more help to your boy there in Ladd McConkey. Not sure here if the round 2 makes sense. Defensive tackle is still an option. Darius Alexander I really like. Maybe even CJ West, sneaky. But Darius Alexander is going to be my pick here for them. The Bills up. Obviously, they went James Pierce. They do have a couple picks here in this second round, so they have some time to chip away at some positions of need. Linebacker Carson still on the board out of UCLA. I think he will hear his name in round 2, so that is a good fit there. The Panthers, they went linebacker. I thought maybe edge would be an option for him. DB an option. I mean, I like Darian Porter. I don't know if I really like it there for them. Xavier Watts being there probably shouldn't be there. I'm going Xavier Watts for them. The Texans, obviously, they lost Stephon Diggs. I think you probably... Where did Stephon Diggs even go? I just remember he ain't there. Stephon Diggs. He went to the Patriots. That's right, the Patriots. The Texans. Nico Collins, I really like. Tank Dell, I really like. Problem is, kind of thin out at sometimes. Receiver. I think we're gonna go receiver. Do we go back? That's the real question. Do we go Beck, or do we maybe gamble and go like a Restrepo? I think I'm going to go Beck. The Ravens now on the clock. Obviously, last time around we had them taking Mike Green. For them, though, I think it's probably a wise idea to help protect your boy there in Lamar Jackson. So Tate Ratledge, somebody that I know probably doesn't get much love in very many mock drafts. Plays interior guard, played for a Georgia team. Only given up 2 sacks in the last 3 years. Probably not the best upside kind of pick, but he feels like a guy that could go to a winning team. And guess what? The Ravens are picking him. The Lions, they went Donovan Ezaraku. Do you really want to talk me into them needing a linebacker? Do they really want to talk me into them needing a linebacker? Demetrius Knight, I like. Danny Stutzman, maybe. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do receiver here for him. I might though. They might have been a Tate Ratledge team. I'm going to do receiver. Obviously, they have Amon-Ra. We know Amon-Ra is really good. Obviously, Jameson Williams is really good when healthy. You have speed. You have a dynamic route runner. What do you need? You need a guy that goes up and gets it. Jalen Knoll, 5'11", he ain't your guy, right? I really like Savion Williams, who I actually do believe is kind of tall. Yeah, he's 6'5". But I don't know if he's really your guy right now. Pat Bryant would have been a nice option there. Maybe even Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton is a guy that might hear his name called a little bit earlier. Restrepo, he's not going to blow you away with his size. 5'10". You don't need that. Maybe you're looking at Jalen Royals out of Utah State. 6 foot. I don't know. Because you're probably trying to find somebody that can fill a little bit of that role that is being left with Tim Patrick leaving, right? Do we want to give them Savion Williams is the real question. If Ben Johnson was there, I would say yes. But I'm not sure. Tesla. It's another really interesting option for them. Big body kind of slot receiver there for him. Do we hear Tesla's name called a little earlier than expected? Isaiah Bond, by the way, he's going to go in these next couple picks. You know what? Maybe Isaiah Bond. Maybe we don't worry about the size. World-class speed here. 21 years old. You get him. You get Jameson Williams. That's going to be a problem, right? Isaiah Bond, I don't see him falling out of the top 2 rounds. I'm going to go with Isaiah Bond, not Jameson Williams. They already have Jameson Williams. Guess what? Now you got 2 world-class sprinters. They're going to be hard to keep up with. The Commanders now on the clock. We went with Tyler Booker. Corner was an option. Guess what? Porter is there, and Darian Porter. We are taking Darian Porter. We will quickly go up to the podium for him. The Bills, we have addressed a few needs. Pierce, Schwessinger. Maybe now we're looking maybe at a receiver. Don't love this receiver room. I do like Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel. He's up there in age now. You might dip in with the receiver room yet again. You have a Keon, right? You have your guy that can go and get it. I really like Restrepo here. I'm going Xavier Restrepo. The Chiefs, we had them select Kenneth Grant. What is the streets saying? The streets are saying Derek Harmon. There's no way any of these guys are here about it. Omar Norman will be there. He probably will be there. I just don't see a guy here that really particularly stands out for me for the Chiefs. Maybe Jonah. I do like Jonah there. You're not going DT. Probably Jonah. I think I like Jonah there. And then you get to the Eagles. They went Luther Burden. We've seen it in the past that they go and they just get their guy. There's some edge rushers on the board. They want to go get a top-tier player. Jack Sawyer is that. I'm doing Jack Sawyer in the top 2 rounds. I think he will make it in the top 2 rounds. You call me crazy. Jack Sawyer. There we go. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I will be back on Thursday for just a final mock draft of the first round. We aren't going to be doing everything that we just did today. There will be trades. There will be everything. We'll talk about, and obviously you guys already know some of my late draft guys that I think, hey, if you go get them outside the top 50, I think they'll be good impact players. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will see you all next time. We'll give a quick little scroll down so you can see who I had in my first round. Actually, we'll even go here so you can see who I had in the entire draft. If you forgot who I had your team selecting, make sure you pause on your spot. Tyler Shuck, a little bit of a bold pick there. I'm hearing, I don't love it. I don't think the player is that, but I'm hearing rumblings. Sometimes with rumblings, there is fire. So that is kind of where my head's at in terms of the draft. I like a lot of these players here in this class if the Bears were to get them. So we will see what happens on Thursday afternoon, night, trades leading up to them, whatever. But thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.